IMHO, I'm Kelcey. That's Lang. And this week was the Met Gala. And there were a lot of athletes there. And a lot of them looked very, very, very good. And so Lang and I this week are going to talk about who looked the best. No, we're not. We're going to talk about the most fashionable NBA players of all time.
What's the point of the Met Gala? Do we know?
I'm not a gala or award show or anything person, so I just don't think I'm the right person to ask.
Or is it just like they just want people to dress up and walk up those stairs and that's it? That
yeah,
might
like
be
what
it.
happens once you're in there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just a bunch of
I don't think it's an
well-dressed
award
people
show.
like looking cool. I don't know.
Maybe they watch the Mets.
That's
Lose
what
to
it
the
is.
Braves.
Yeah, I think shout out the Braves. Everyone just bows down to Atlanta.
Braves.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know what the point of it is. But we do. It's a good opening to talk about the most fashionable NBA players.
And I think you and I
time.
have such different fashion styles. I'm so excited
True.
for this one because I'm like, ooh, who's Lang's going to choose like Steven Adams?
No, although I'm trying to go away from my own definition of fashion.
Oh no!
And look, I worked at GQ for a couple of years, and I didn't. They wouldn't let me near the fashion stuff. I just did the sports part. So, but I do understand kind of what's fashion. So
It's called fashion. Look it up.
my honorable mention is going to be Magic Johnson, because when he was on the Lakers, this is a time when the NBA was at probably its lowest popularity ever. And all of a sudden Magic and Bird happens, and it's this explosion of popularity leads into the Michael Jordan era. And Magic was in LA, and if you watch, go back and look at some of the, Magic was wearing fur coats and sunglasses indoors and all that kind of stuff that became.
Didn't Dennis Rodman wear
down
like
the
a wedding
road.
dress?
Sure. It's not really fashion though. It's just stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, Magic's my honorable mention.
My honorable mention is Kelly Oubre because I also feel like maybe not as recently, he's kind of cooled down, but he very much was a trend pusher.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he started Jordan Clarkson. Oh, I didn't put him in mine either.
Yeah.
Jordan Clarkson's another honorable mention. Like the guys who were like painting their nails before it was like cool. They would always push it. Like
Dennis
I'm
Rodman.
kind of skatery. Yeah. So I think those two guys now are kind of like the trend pushers, although they did not make my list.
All right, my number 3 is going to be, and it's fashion subjective, right?
Of course.
It doesn't mean necessarily a coat and a tie. It's just being who you are and owning that.
Confidence.
And number 3 for me is Allen Iverson.
Like the big clothes?
Yeah, but the Timberlands, the big jeans, the big leather jackets, the hats, the throwback jerseys, that was the style at the time. And Iverson kind of took it to such an extreme that the NBA had to put in a dress code.
Which is wild because now guys come in without shirts on.
Now it's now the dress goes out the window. But Iverson owned that and really kind of pushed that out to the world.
He was very iconic. Like kids dressed in oversized tees for how long because of what Allen Iverson started. Okay, I went a very different way.
All right.
My number 3 is Kyle Kuzma. Because although I would say many people look at him and smirk or laugh or whatever, it is talked about. Talking about pushing the envelope, he is very much talked about. Obviously, one of the ones that comes to mind is the oversized pink sweater. That was a bobblehead this year. The year after he wore it, people are still talking about it. And I think as much as it is about confidence, it also is about making people talk and maybe making people think. And Kyle Kuzma definitely does that.
He did that. So for my number 2, if we're talking about guys who've made people talk, made people think, you mentioned Kelly Oubre earlier, and Kuzma and Clark. All those guys, to me, they're all following the footsteps of Russell Westbrook. And so
Russ is also my number 2.
There we go. I got Russ number 2 because I feel like he kind of paved the way for all those guys to come in wearing shorts and construction worker outfits.
He wears
just whatever it
kilts.
is. Yeah.
He has his own fashion brand, Honor the Gift. He had his own kind of side shoe.
And he had his own Jordans for a while,
why
too.
not? Yeah, that's what I mean.
There's a whole thing. So I think Russ, all those guys really, to me, kind of follow in the footsteps of Russ.
I feel like Russ is one of those guys also that can put, you mentioned the construction worker vest, he can put something on.
Yeah.
And if I wore that in here, you'd be like, Kels, no.
Yeah.
If he puts it on because he does exude that confidence.
He makes it fashion. Yeah.
All right, give me number 1.
My number 1, and I'm going back before you and I were born, is Walt Clyde Frazier from the New York Knicks. And His name was Walt Frazier. Clyde was his nickname because he was so cool.
Oh.
They just called him Clyde because he was so cool. And he wore the Pumas on the court. And if you go just Google Walt Clyde Frazier, there's a million pictures of the coolest dude who ever played in the NBA.
I see a picture of him with like a pea coat and like a hat.
Everything. He was sort of Russ before Russ back in the 70s. And, you know, was the last guy to bring a title to New York. So I think Clyde has to, and he's still the announcer for the Knicks. So it's fun. He still wears the crazy suits now on TV. So I go with Clyde.
Okay, because you went with a person who kind of started it, right? And people are like following his
You're
footsteps.
going to go with the guy who ended it. Oh.
No, I'm going to go to a guy who I think is the next generation of fashion and kind of the next icon in sports fashion. And that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And obviously we saw him at the Met Gala, but he's the only guy in the league who has a Louis Vuitton sponsorship. I think he is someone who, you know, makes those GQ top 50 lists. Like he is a guy who I think is going to be looked at the way that you look at Clyde years from now when you look at fashion as athletes.
Now it's hard to stand out because there's so many guys now who are, you know, when Clyde was doing it, he was one of the only guys kind of pushing the envelope. Now everybody does it, and I think for somebody like Shai, it's probably a lot of work to stand out. Compared
it would be a lot of work, but somehow he still does it. Like when everyone was wearing tight jeans, he decided to not do the flared. He decided to go like oversized, and he like is so versatile. You see him at the Met Gala, and he like fits in, and everyone. It's like a hands down, no one's arguing. Like you know, sometimes Jeju will walk in, and people will be like, "I hate this fit. I like this fit." There's no debates when Shai comes in wearing certain things that, again, push the envelope. And I think a lot of people follow what Shai wears.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Right.
I like how we ended that.
Yeah, it was good.
Let us know. I want to know who you guys think is the most fashionable because, like Lang said, very subjective. And I want to know what everyone thinks about some NBA players of all time. I want your top 3. Let us know in the comments below. We'll see you next week.